Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and I'm very excited that you are here. If you're listening to this in real time, it's summer. And for a lot of people, that is the time when people are looking to buy and sell houses. So I thought it would be appropriate for us to do a couple episodes about do's and don'ts, things to know if you are looking to either put your house on the market and sell it from an organization standpoint. And then on the flip side, once you get into your house, what are some organizing do's and don'ts, things that you can help set you up for success from the get-go? And so when I was researching this topic, I was like, let me look out to my organizing network of friends to talk to them about, see who would be interested in speaking on this particular topic. And it's funny because a lot of organizers are very interested in the unpacking side of helping people like get set up in their new houses. But the packing up side isn't something that jazzes a lot of people up. You get some people that are like move management specialists, but a lot of my core people in the organizing space, that's not their thing. But I found somebody. I have a great person for you. So I was chatting with my friend DeLorean, and I've known DeLorean for, oh my gosh, I feel like it's been at least 5+ years, maybe longer. She's part of our SBO partner program. She runs a company called Piece by Piece in San Francisco. And I mean, I met her when she was just like, had like one assistant, and now she's got this huge team, and she's going to come and kind of give you her whole story. But since starting her company, which I think was in like 2015, she's really honed in on helping people in that whole move management area. And although she is still like a generalist and helps out with closet designs and kitchens and stuff for people that are in life transitions. One of the big areas that she really has built a name and a network for in the San Francisco area is helping people get organized when it comes to the whole moving process, because it's overwhelming. It's one of the most overwhelming things that people go through. As exciting as it can be totally overwhelming. And so I wanted to invite DeLorean in to share her knowledge, expertise with you. So without further ado, let me welcome my friend DeLorean to the show. Welcome, DeLorean.
Hi, Lori. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that that you're able to fit this in. For anybody that's watching us on YouTube, DeLorean is like 9.5 months pregnant. Like she's ready to have this baby. She may go into labor during our recording. I hope not. I hope not. But we were like, okay, we need to get this done before you have this baby. So at the time that this episode airs, she will have her new baby. So we're super excited. Gave a very, very top line overview for our listeners, but just in your own words, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, and then we can get into all the things.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again. So I'm DeLorean. You did kind of give a brief intro about our organizing, but, we do everything across the board. So we help with decluttering, space optimization, moving coordination. So packing, unpacking, all of that good stuff. We really enjoy working with families and, young business professionals and, also our older clients as well. So we can basically do anything. I've been in the business for almost 8 years now, and we have grown, which is amazing. And my family has also grown. Like you said, I'm very pregnant. I have a 2.5-year-old at home. So things are getting really interesting, but all very exciting things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you obviously have firsthand experience. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I feel like San Francisco, California in general, I feel like there's so much movement there with people moving in, people
Oh
moving
yeah.
out, whether it's for jobs, whether it's pandemic reason, like whatever.
Hmm.
And so the past couple of years, I think you've really done a lot. Your business has exploded in the area of helping people. And so when we were talking offline, you were like, there's so many things that people don't think about.
Yeah.
And like anything when it comes to organizing, it could be with parenting, it could be with eating, it could be with whatever. You don't know what you don't know. So like you don't even often know certain questions to ask. And that I
Yeah.
think is where you really come in, because for a lot of people, it's like, okay, I'm going to move. I'm going to pack up my stuff. I'm going to call a mover. We're going to get it moved from point A to point B. And that's it. And it's
Yeah.
not as cut and dry as
No.
that. So I mean, there's so many places that we can start, but why don't we kind of just like, what is the first thing if somebody calls you? Like, what is kind of like step one of the process, would you say?
Yeah. My first question is, have you booked movers yet? Because I feel like, you know, the good movers, they're always booked. So if you're about a month out from your move, like
Mm-hmm.
it's very rare that you're going to get a really good mover because they're already going to be booked. So like the earlier that you can start this process, the better. So that's my first question. Like, have you hired movers yet? And if you haven't, like, let's get on that. We want to do that as soon as possible. Um, you
I was
know,
just going to ask. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you here.
yeah,
So I'll
no, go
ask a
ahead.
follow up question. How far in advance should you book the mover? Like if you know you're like, okay, I just sold my house and I'm closing in whatever,
Mhm.
30, 60, 90, whatever it looks like. Um, is that like when you make the phone call, or is there like what, how far in advance should people be
I would
looking?
say if you at least have like 2 months that you know, ahead of time that you would know, I think that's going to be the best.
Okay.
Because, you know, like I said, all the good movers are booked,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and especially if you have a hard deadline, like you need to be out by the 1st or you need to be out by the 15th, like those are the first dates to go. And
Sure.
if you don't have any wiggle room, you need more of a month's notice. A lot of times what happens is, you know, um, clients do have wiggle room, right? So they can be out on the 2nd or the 3rd or the 4th, which allows us to get really good movers. But I would say, like, as soon as you know that you're moving, like, start the process. You know, get some quotes, because even just reaching out to different movers, maybe you're not booking quite yet, but you want to get different quotes. You want to learn about their company. Like that all takes time. And a lot of the moving companies, they want to come to the home, they want to tour it so they can give you an appropriate estimate. If you want to start that process early so you can narrow down your candidates and then book your mover.
Yeah, and so to find like anything, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
my first thing whenever I go to book any service provider of any kind is I want to go with a referral if I can,
Yeah.
right? I want to know that somebody's used this person and has had a good positive experience. I mean, that goes if
Yeah.
somebody is going to be cutting my lawn, cutting my hair, or helping me. I mean, but this is a big deal, right? Like I think,
Yes.
I'm dating myself, but like just randomly picking somebody out of the yellow pages or Googling them is not really the where you should go. But if you don't have that personal referral, if you don't have somebody, what are some specific questions maybe that somebody should be asking if they're looking to try to even interview a mover or find somebody?
Yeah, so I think some of the specific questions are just kind of knowing what their services are and getting a really clear understanding, right? Are they doing the packing? If they are doing the packing, great. You know, are they bringing their own packing materials? You know, are we being charged for that? Or do we need to provide the packing materials? Um, I think any sort of question that you can ask just to understand what their services are going to be
Mm-hmm.
really helpful. Because a lot of times, you know, you think that they're going to come and do something, but there's some sort of miscommunication and they show up and they're like, oh no, we thought you were doing the packing or whatever, you know. So you just want to make sure that you're really clear about what they're offering and, you know, what your responsibilities are versus what are the mover's responsibilities. Here in the city, one thing that people don't think about is permits. You need to get a permit when you hire a mover because the moving truck's going to block the street. And, if the city wants to, they could ticket the movers, which is going to fall back on you. You're going to have to pay for that parking fine. So, something like asking a question like, are you guys going to acquire the parking permit, or is that something that I need to do? So just, simple questions like that. So that way there's no surprises on the day of the move. It's the last thing that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you bring up a really good point about really that communication and setting those appropriate expectations, because, and this goes, we talk about this all the time on the show, is, when somebody hires us specifically, even as professional organizers, to come in and do a job, some people have an expectation that you're going to come in and it's going to be all done for you. And other people are like, well, no, you need to be working with me side by side. So really being clear of what the process is and what it is that you as the homeowner is looking for. Like, I don't want to have to deal with any of it. I want you to deal with all of it. Right. And what does that look like? Now, talk to us about, like, where do your clients, when they involve you in the process, where does that fall in? And is it like, are you decluttering before you go? Is it like they've already gone through the decluttering and you're just helping them find the best way? And I'm sure it runs a spectrum, but just walk us through a little bit about how you have specifically kind of helped people.
Yeah. I mean, we get calls from people who are, getting ready to move, who are in the moving process, who have already moved in. So there's different stages that people come to us. But I would say, if a client is coming to us and they're getting ready for an upcoming move, and they want to hire our team, the process that we would do is, number one, we would, acquire movers. So get a bunch of moving quotes. I have some companies in the city that I work exclusively with. I would go to those people first, make sure that they're available, give them quotes, and then, make a decision with the client as to who we would hire. After that, depending on the place that they're moving into, like, are the closets finished, or do we need to design closets and get those installed? So that's kind of like the next process. After that, then we want to start decluttering, right? Because you never want to pack up something, pay for it to get moved, then unpack it, and then put it in a pile to go to Goodwill. Like, it's just inefficient. It's a waste of time and money.
Right. Or leave it in a box and stick it in a garage, basement, attic, whatever. And then it just moving box to box, like from house to house. So,
right. And the other thing people don't think about too, is that, like, when you're doing the decluttering process, it also helps you get like with like, right? So if your house is really disorganized, when you're decluttering, then we can say, oh, in the new house, we have this big, beautiful entertainment center with bookshelves, and that's where all the books are going to go. Well, maybe in your current house, you have books in the bedroom, books in the study, books in the playroom. During that decluttering process, we can get all the books together in one place so they all get packed up together. So it makes it more efficient on the back end of unpacking. That box goes right into the living room, right by the entertainment center. It gets unpacked and you're done. So that's one thing that people don't think about. They're like, oh, I'll get rid of stuff later. It's not just getting rid of stuff. It's also getting things in the right place to be packed.
I love that, because it really is, because I think sometimes people, because it is overwhelming, are like, I'm going to just deal with this part of it now, and I'll deal with the unpacking when I get there. But it really makes sense to think strategically about, where is this stuff going to live in the new house? So that way, when you're setting it, when you're arranging, whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring somebody to do it, you can then say, all of this stuff is going to go in the study in the new house, or in the playroom in the new house, versus if your kid's bedroom, maybe you didn't have a playroom in your apartment, and so you packed up toys, but it's not going into his bedroom in the new house, it's going in the playroom. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I have a question about insurance, and I don't know if you, because I love that you do like a very kind of like white glove concierge. Like, it seems like when someone hires you, you can do the whole thing soup to nuts. Like you said, you'll get quotes for them, do the whole 9 yards.
I mean, we actually have people that hire us and they go out of town and they'll go on vacation, and they'll come back in 4 or 5 days and their house will be totally set up. TVs hung, art hung. Now that's a lot of control to let go of. Some people are like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because they want to have input as to where things go. But like we have done moves like that. So we are very turnkey in that regard.
I love it. I love it. People, I'm sure there's people out there that are listening. They're like, oh my gosh, I just want to hire her. And we will have links so you can, people, if you are in the San Francisco area. What about insurances? Because again, I think a lot of people, again, going back to the assumption, or they'll check and you'll see your mover is fully insured. And obviously you as a professional organizer are insured as well. But are there certain insurances that you need to like check up with, or should people be checking with their own homeowner's insurance before going into this? If there is something that is damaged or broken, just kind of checking all of those boxes. What is that process?
So a big misconception is that people think that they are covered A, through the movers, and B, through their homeowner's insurance. But you need to call and make sure that you're really aware of the policy and also any exemptions that they have, because what I've discovered is that, sometimes people won't cover certain things. So for instance, I ran into an issue with a client of mine who had a very unique piece of furniture that was in a storage unit that she was moving to New Mexico to a family member. And this piece was irreplaceable, right? It had glass. I mean, if it got damaged, it would be a really bad thing.
Yeah, sure.
So we wanted to make sure that everything was covered. And what we found was that, we couldn't get additional insurance through the insurance company because there was some sort of exemption about a storage unit. And when she tried to go through her homeowners, they wouldn't cover it because it was at a storage facility and it wasn't at the home. So then we tried to get, additional independent insurance. And it took a couple companies to call and really find someone who would cover the piece. So, you just need to make sure that you're aware of what is covered and what isn't. Most basic insurance policies for movers are something like 75 cents per pound, right? So you think about that. If you have like a piece of art that's worth $50,000 that weighs 15 pounds, the math doesn't math.
Right.
So one cool thing is, though, a lot of moving companies will allow you to take out additional insurance for specific items, right? Like, so for clothing, like you might not need to take out additional insurance for that, but maybe for the TV or the Peloton or, any high-end art, just, taking those specific things and itemizing it and getting additional insurance for those items. I think the same thing goes with your homeowner's insurance. You just need to call and, find out what's covered. Cause they may cover like damage, or, if they drop a box, but if the moving truck gets into an accident and your stuff gets damaged, that might not be covered. So there's so many different exemptions and like loopholes, and you just want to make sure that you're aware so that if you do end up in one of these like really sticky situations, that you're not like at a total loss.
No, I'm thinking that it really makes sense because again, it's one of those things where it's not a problem till it is, right?
Yeah.
Where most people are like, I'll worry about it. It won't be a big deal. But then what is the potential consequence, right? If it's something that you don't really care about, it's not really worth it. If you're like, oh, I just bought that at like Home Goods, it doesn't matter. But like you said, if this is something that either has that has a specific monetary value, then it's worth it for you to put the work in on the front end. And if you don't feel that you have the time or the bandwidth to do it, there are people that will do it, but don't just assume that everything is going to be covered and that it's going to fall.
Look, 9 times out of 10, the move goes off without a hitch, and there's no issues. And your movers can be the best movers, in the world, but things happen. We're human, accidents happen. And so like the more that you can be prepared for that, the better. The other thing that I also tell clients is if you have loose cash or things that are in a safe or very important documents or jewelry that's like irreplaceable, like move those things yourself. Pack yourself a suitcase, move it yourself. While the movers are very capable and can do that, you just need to keep track of those really important items yourself so that you make sure that they get from point A to point B securely. So
I love it. Let's move into products a little bit. One of my
Yeah.
favorite topics, right? So, because I know I'm pretty vocal when it comes to like actual storage for the sustainability, I'm
Mhm.
not a fan of like using cardboard boxes because of weather and damage, risk of damage and all that. When
Mhm.
you're talking about moving, are there specific products that you recommend and certain things that maybe you should avoid that you'll
Yeah.
say for people? And if so,
So,
lay it on us.
well, there are a lot of really new companies out there that have reusable boxes or totes that they're called. And so it's a greener approach to go
Mm-hmm.
instead of cardboard boxes and paper and all that good stuff. You can hire them and they'll drop off all of these like crates. And you can then fill your belongings in these crates. And then you do your move and you unpack them, you put them all together and they come and pick them up. So that's a really good way.
Yeah.
The only downside to that is they're all the same size.
Oh,
So you're
right.
not going to be packing any over extra large things in these
Mm,
crates. It's just more for like small items. So clothing, kitchen stuff, toys, books, those kinds of things. You would still need to get boxes for any of the oversized or specialty items. Now that's an additional cost. You're going to have to pay for that service, right? So sometimes that's not doable. It's better for clients to buy the paper and the boxes because it's more affordable.
mm.
So, if you do that, I always say that like bubble wrap and crushed paper go a long way,
Yeah, for sure.
like
Yep. Yeah.
you unless it's a TV or like a piece of art or a mirror, like you don't really need any of those specialty dish pack boxes. Like you
Hmm.
can just do a regular medium sized box or a small box and a lot of paper and bubble wrap, and you'll be totally fine. As long as you're making sure that you're packing and you're putting crushed paper on the bottom of the box and crushed
Hmm.
paper on the top, you'll be good to go. Um, so, I would say like definitely using those types of things for your move. A lot of times for clothing, we've used like Ziploc like vacuum bags.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Those are
Like those space saver bags.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Those are also really helpful. And we'll find that, we'll use them for the move and then we can reuse them maybe for some storage of items in the garage. So
Hmm.
we're not just buying them just for the move and then they go to waste. You can reuse them. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can be really basic and you can get by with just boxes and crushed paper and bubble wrap and you'll be totally fine.
And is your advice also to kind of keep it to those medium size boxes? Like I'm also thinking about people that obviously boxes come in all different shapes and sizes. And do you
Mhm.
find that some people just put too much in a box and it makes it more complicated on the back end? So,
Sometimes, I mean, I think if you hire movers, like they're the ones that are doing most of the work when it comes to box size. And as long
mhm,
as it gets in the right room on the back end and you don't have to move it, it's okay to unpack it.
right.
But, if you're packing books, they have these really small book boxes, which
Yes.
seem really inefficient because they're so small, but they get so heavy.
They get
So, like,
so heavy.
if you put a bunch of books in a medium size box, oh man, you're going to kill your movers. I mean, it's brutal. So I'd say, like, yeah, I think depending on what you're packing is really going to dictate what size box you need. Like obviously, for packing up a closet, you need wardrobe boxes. So you can just
Yeah.
take things off, of the closet on the hanger and just pop it right into the box. The other cool thing about those wardrobe boxes is a lot of times when things are hanging, there's still room underneath. So you
Yep.
could stash some pillows in there from your master bedroom, or maybe you have some clothes that were in a drawer in the closet can go under, that wardrobe box. I think you want to be as efficient as possible because if you do the packing on your own, you will have to
Excuse me.
pay.
Sorry. I knew I felt this sneeze coming on. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
If you do the packing on your own, like you're going to pay per box, right? Like if you only
Right.
have 10 boxes to move, that's going to be cheaper than if there's 50 boxes to move,
Sure.
right? So you just want to make sure that you're efficient and you're using up all of the space in the box. instead of just having like a wardrobe box that just has clothes in it and you like have all this unutilized space in the bottom of the box.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So what about, I'm going to pivot for a minute, and I want to talk about like some of the other things about that people should consider about maybe canceling subscriptions or having mail forwarded, all those other kind of ancillary things that you need to kind of check the boxes on in addition to the physical part of that. Is there a particular, like, I don't know if there's a checklist that you use, or is there some advice that you give to your clients or things that you do for your clients to help streamline that process for people?
Well, that's a little challenging for us to do ourselves because a lot of that stuff, you know, you're going to be calling your bank and changing your address. So like the client is really the only one that can do it. But we can kind of guide them as to like things to think about, right? Because it's not just like your internet and, you know, your cable and your gas and your trash and all of those kind of like basic things. It's also like changing your voter registration, right? Like if you own a business and, you know, maybe your business is registered at your home, like you got to change that with the city or the state. You know, and so some of those things are quite the process to do, right? So I would say like usually 2 to 3 weeks out from your move, scheduling a date, sitting down, making a list of everything that you can think of that needs to get a change of address, like your banks, you know, forwarding your address for your mail, your cable, your gas, your trash, like all the things, right? Like maybe you need to call your child's school and update your address information with the school. I mean, there's so many things that you have to give your address for that, you know, you really just want to make sure that you sit down, you spend a couple minutes to really make that list, and then you execute it. You don't want to wait until the last minute. You definitely don't want to wait until you're out of the house to start making those changes. I've learned that lesson. I moved in 2020, and I never changed my business registration to my new address when I moved because it was already paid and I just didn't think about it. And I had missed some very important tax documents from the state that because I missed them, I ended up paying a bunch of fees. And it was an expensive mistake.
Right.
But I totally forgot about it.
Yeah. I mean, you think about if anybody's ever had to like change their credit or debit card because it gets compromised and you're like, oh, I forgot about that. Cause the common ones stay in your mind, but then it's like those once a year things or those annual subscriptions or, oh, I forgot my Easy Pass. And now, you know,
also your accounts too, like your Ticketmaster accounts or your StubHub accounts, you know, like you don't want to
DeLorean's a concert goer, if you guys haven't realized. It's true though.
I've also had this happen to me though before where like I purchased, you know, tickets through StubHub and they got shipped to my old address because I didn't update my address. So like simple things like that, you know, I'm sure people get mail sent to their house. Like I've had old neighbors contact me and be like, hey, this package got delivered. Do you see it? Can you grab it? You know, because they didn't change their address. So there's so many things, so many subscriptions, Amazon, you know, like you just want to make sure that you take care of all of it. So you're not doing this backtracking later and, you know, making your life more difficult.
Yeah. There's so many logistics that go into a move, from the to throughout the entire process, from physical stuff to all these other things to consider. It's no wonder it's overwhelming. And then on top of it, you look at different life scenarios and people are moving for different reasons. You've got people that are moving because they're kind of moving up in life, right? Their family is growing, or, you know, they're moving from an apartment to a house or things, and they're like in this state of growth. And then you also have people that are maybe on the back end and are downsizing. Or, you know, unfortunately, people are maybe getting divorced or having some sort of life change. And so there's a lot of emotion that also goes through the whole process. And I'm wondering, just from your experience working with clients from across multiple spectrums, do you approach things differently or with a different kind of level of, I don't know, are there more factors that you, for certain scenarios versus others, or does your approach change to how you deal with the client?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that our approach changes, because no matter what, like, organizing, moving, all of that stuff is very emotional for people. So no matter what, at the end of the day, we always want to come and be, really gentle with our clients and understanding, and not push them, and really help them through this process, because everyone's on different levels, right? And while, an organizing project in the home of like organizing closet may be like nothing to someone, it may be like a really hard task for someone else that, is really emotionally challenging. So I think we approach all projects the same. I think the only thing I would say is that this is good information for us to know so that we can prepare, right?
Sure.
And so we can also prepare our team, especially if it's like, we're helping a client with a move and the family's getting divorced and we have a mix of stuff in the home. Then we need to figure out like, okay, how do we approach this? Like, how are we going to divide and separate so that way, like his stuff doesn't end up at her house and vice versa, and that way too, it's also for us, like I can make the team aware that if we are doing decluttering, or if we are doing, the packing, that if we're coming across something that belongs to the other person, that we can then set it aside for them, so that we make sure it doesn't end up at the wrong place. So, I mean, that would be the only like little difference. But most projects we're going in and, we are approaching it pretty much the same, because whether or not they're downsizing or they're getting a divorce or they're having a baby, they're still going to book movers, declutter, pack stuff up, unpack, and organize, right? They're still going through that main track. I think it's just, we want to be a little more sensitive to their emotions and their needs, and kind of approach it that way.
I love it. That's such great advice. And it is true. We're all going through our own stuff, but the steps all have to happen at some point, for sure.
Yeah.
You've obviously given tons of valuable insight and information, but if we were to try to tie it up in like a nice, neat bow for people that are out there that are listening, if somebody's about to embark on this and they're like right at the beginning stages, and you have like a few, like, these are my top 5 tips kind of things. What would they be? Can you just ramble some of those off? Not to put you on.
Number one, if you have the resources, hire a professional.
Totally.
Make your life easy, because the other thing is too, like, even if you don't hire them for everything, for all the moving coordination, they're going to help you think about the things that you're not thinking about. Right. So even just having that conversation with someone, like there are plenty of people that come to us and in the beginning, they want to do everything, right? But it's a little out of their budget. And maybe they only hire us for then, the unpacking. We're still going to be like, did you book your movers? Do a little bit of decluttering, make sure you have appropriate insurance. We're still going to help them along the way. Did you get a permit?
You're like a consultant at that point. Even if you're not doing the heavy lifting, you're still consulting. And that is such a valuable like asset to have in your corner.
Yeah. So like have someone, a professional, to help and coach you along the way. That's number one. Number two is, if you can't do that, start early and start small, right? So starting early, couple months out, make sure you book those movers, make sure you get those permits, start small. You have a lot of decluttering to do in your home one day, maybe just start by doing a really small area. If you try to bite off more than you can chew, that's where it becomes really overwhelming. And sometimes people make more of a mess, which makes the move longer and more expensive. So start small and start early. The other thing that I would say is, if you do have to get any sort of like closets designed or installed, that also needs to get started earlier. I have people all the time who call me and they're like, I'm moving in a week and our closets just have a shelf and a rod. And it's like, the timeline on that is, 4 to 6 weeks plus, so it gets really hard when you move into a new space and you don't have anything to unpack into.
Right.
So just being proactive really about all the things that need to happen. And, one of the other things too, I think, to make it easier on yourself is let a professional pack, either an organizer or the movers. People all the time want to save money and do the packing on their own. And then it gets down to the wire and it's like the night before your move and things are everywhere and things aren't packed. And then you're not going to pack them appropriately. And it really can make a mess. So have someone else pack for you. Like you don't need to do that.
Just don't do the dance. Just cut the cord easy
No.
and say, I'm outsourcing this. And this is part of the moving expense.
Exactly. Because when you think about it, it's not like it's going to cost you $10,000 more for someone else to pack. It's going to cost you a couple $1,000s. And at the end of the day, it's going to be less of a headache and it's going to be less stress for you and your family, especially if you have a family. I see it all the time where, they'll have young children and they're like, yeah, we're going to do the packing ourselves. And then, come a day before, the house is still like a mess and it's not done. And
I would have hives like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It gets to be a lot. So I think just kind of removing that stress, I know that people get so hung up on the cost, but you really have to think about is it better to, spend the money and do it and be done? Or do I stress myself out and take twice as long? You got to weigh the pros and the cons.
Well, and I think you also bring up a really good point about also kind of knowing yourself.
Yes.
If you know that you're somebody, and this is not for me to cast blame or judgment on anyone, but if you know that you're somebody that is a procrastinator and you know that about yourself and this is there's so many moving parts to something like a move. And and you might work well under pressure when it comes to getting a report into school or work or whatever, turning in a presentation. But when it comes to something that has this many logistics to it, procrastination is not your friend in this scenario. Now, if you're somebody who is intuitively pretty organized and you know that you can handle it and you're going to go through the decluttering process and you are strategic in how you're going to do it, that's one thing. But again, I love what you're saying is because again, if you know at the end of the day, you want to do it, but you're not really setting yourself up for success for it to be executed efficiently, it's worth it for the peace of mind and just the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. Was there anything else that you wanted to add or had we?
No, I
covered a ton of things.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think, it's moving can be really stressful. And if you can just, like I said, start early and, check these things off of your list and also have a professional to kind of guide you through that, it's going to be so seamless. And I can't even tell you how many people have hired us for moves and then come back and hired us again when they move to another place because they're like,
that's awesome.
It was so amazing and so seamless. And we want you guys to take care of everything again. And it makes it worth it in the end and in the long run. And the other thing too is, not only hiring someone to help you through the process, but also with the unpacking process. Because a lot of people think they can unpack on their own. And while you can, it may take you weeks or months and sometimes, years. So having someone come in and unpack for you, you can be done and, set up and organize in a matter of days. And then you can get back to your regular life instead of dragging out the process. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, we're going to link up to all thing DeLorean and Piece by Piece in our show notes. And again, I'll just put this out as and I know we talked about this at the top of the episode. It goes without saying, it's always a good time to declutter, but moving is especially a great time to use this as an opportunity to think about what you're keeping, what you're going to use in the new house, in the new space, depending on whether or not you're going to have room for said products or stuff. And so really be strategic. If you can, put that work in on the front end so that when you are doing the unpacking or having somebody do the unpack, you know that everything is there is going to be serving some sort of function as opposed to just taking up space. So
yeah, exactly.
Let everyone know where they can connect up with you, find you, and
yeah. So we have a website. It's pxpsf.com. That's the best place to get in touch with us. We also have Instagram and Facebook. And people can also connect with us there as well. I'm sure maybe we can like link that somehow.
Yes, we will have links. To, yes. We're gonna have links to everything, and of course, you can always find DeLorean on our website, also on our SBO partner page with our resources of all of our amazing organizers. So yes, we'll have links for everything for you to connect up with, or if you have questions, you can give her a shout out on Instagram or wherever. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to just do our quick wrap up questions, and we're going to let this pregnant mama to be go on her merry way. So sit tight. All right. So we always ask our guests a few questions, and it's funny because I give our guests our show kind of prep in advance. And DeLorean says to me, "Oh my gosh, you're asking me a question about books. I don't have time to read anymore. I have a 2-year-old and I'm about to, and a business, and I'm about to have a baby." So I said, okay, we won't put you in the hot seat for a book that you're reading, but your little boy, Bowie, who's the cutest thing, is a reader. So what book is he reading or loving these days? What is our 2-year-old little mind?
So, I mean, I have been reading books. I'm not going to lie. I have, but they're like potty training books. They're not fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's all functional. So
so we don't want to talk about that, but he is really into those books, like If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, or
who's that guy? Who writes that?
I am not sure. I'd have to like look it up, but there's also like If You Give a Dog a Donut. And I think he like really loves it, obviously, because he really loves animals, but he is also like really into special treats right now. So like a donut and a cookie. And so he just thinks those stories are so funny.
Laura Numeroff, that's who it is.
Yes.
Laura, yes. I was like, I could see it.
Oh,
my kids love those books.
Yeah. Aww. So he's always, wanting to get the different versions when we go to the library. So that's always a really fun thing for us to pick out.
Oh my God. I love that.
Most of the books I'm reading right now are either about how to like manage your child and your toddler, and then also toddler books.
It's okay. I'm a mom of bigs, and I just read it for young adults and raising teens. It doesn't change. It never ends. It never ends. It just morphs. Okay. And then the last 2 questions that we ask every guest, and we ask this specifically, I mean, we love asking this for professional organizers because we're all about authenticity here, and nobody's perfect and thriving in every area. And so obviously there's many facets of your life that are very organized, but I'm sure there's something in this particular season that you're feeling a little bit of a hot mess. And I'd love if you could just share with our listeners what that might be for you right now.
Yeah. Well, something, I will say my clients all the time are like, "Oh, your house must be so perfect," or, everything must be so dialed in. And it's like, not really. Like I am also human. I also have a toddler and a husband, and like things get out of control, and it's like, it's okay. It's not about having this like perfect Pinterest, Instagram worthy home all the time. It's about having the right system. So that way, like if I do have a friend who's popping up and they're like, "Hey, I want to stop by later on today," that you can tidy in 15 minutes and not feel like your home looks like a mess. So, I think one thing right now for me where I feel like a hot mess is this baby is coming out any day now, and I don't have anything set up for him yet.
Oh my gosh.
I don't have anything organized. I have all the clothes and stuff, but nothing is put away in dressers, and I'm really kind of waiting to the last minute here. But that's where I feel a really hot mess because, I of course would be telling my clients, "You got to get ready. You got to get set up."
You would be hiring a professional organizer, right? Your clients would be hiring you to do it. And that's the thing is like, sometimes you're just like, you're tired after doing it for other people.
And you have so many things that are happening on the day to day, managing your family, running a business that like my personal things often get set aside. So, but I am actually having some members of my team come out to my home in the next week or so to kind of help me get going. So that awesome. Feels good.
That's awesome. I love it. And then where do you feel in this crazy season of growth and transformation, where do you feel the most organized?
The most organized? Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I ever feel organized. No, I'm kidding. I feel the most organized with my business. I really feel like I do put that on the forefront, and I have everything kind of lined up and good to go for, my leave. And I feel really good
because
about
you're going to be
that.
going through, like, you're taking time off, and you've
Yes.
done that once before with Bowie, and here you are again. And that's that in and of itself, for anybody that's a small business owner that's listening, like, to get your ducks in a row so that you can leave and your business still runs smoothly is no small feat.
No, not at all.
So
but that's where I feel really good right now. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I am so glad that we were able to get this episode recorded and in under the wire. Wish you so much happiness and success.
Thank you.
For a smooth, easy delivery and, all good things for you.
Thank you.
If this is your first time tuning into our show, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Make sure to click the follow or subscribe button, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening wherever, Spotify, Apple, wherever. And make sure that you follow not just myself, but DeLorean all over social. We're at This Organized Life podcast. And until next week, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.